I'm Elizabeth. I have 3 children currently at home. My oldest is 12. He'll be 13 in January, very exciting. And I have 2 younger ones, 7 and 9, and we are once again a waiting family. When we first started, we did not start with Diakon. We had started with another agency. And we had 2 babies come and live with us, and we were over the moon. This was our complete family. It was my perfect family, and it lasted 5 months. And they left, and I was devastated. I cried my eyes out for a long time, and we took a step back, we took a break, and we decided to parent teenagers instead, and we hosted international students. And then we decided, no, I think we're ready again. And this time we're going to go in with our eyes wide open, understanding that there is a risk here and that maybe the children will stay and maybe they will go back to their birth family. That's when I met my oldest son. The first time that they called us about him, we said, no, thank you. He had MRSA. And we had an international student living with us, and we've always kind of said to ourselves, the people that are in our home have to be our first priority, and we have to kind of take their needs and concerns first. And when we talked it over as a family, the student that was living with us felt very uncomfortable. So we said, I don't think we can do this right now. A few weeks later, we got a call back again about my son, and they said, do you guys think you would reconsider? Basically it wasn't what we thought it was. It's not working out with his current placement. And we said yes that time. It was a challenge. We joked that when he first came, he equaled 4 kids. He had very severe ADHD. He was not speaking. He was a real handful, bouncing off the walls. One of my first memories of him is getting bitten by my dog. I had a little poodle at the time, and he grabbed him by the fluff either side of his face to kiss him. And as the dog yelped, he put his face in the dog's mouth. I was terrified, jumped in the middle. Fortunately, apparently he got scared, jumped back, and just got a scratch, but it was terrifying. We went back and forth a lot. His family did not give up rights voluntarily, and they could not do the things that children and youth were asking them to do. So probably about 2.5 years in, they terminated rights. On the 29th day, his family appealed. So we went back into that kind of state of limbo where we were waiting again while they reviewed everything. And then finally we moved to adoption. We were all ready at that point, and very happy about it. And then we started the hard work of really building a relationship with his birth family independently. I'm really glad we did because at this point we have a wonderful relationship with his birth family. Almost every year for Christmas Eve, we go over and we have Christmas Eve with his entire extended family. And it's amazing. It really is. We started out with his family very much resenting us for being the other family and for him being in foster care because we were the faces that they saw at every visit when we came up, to the point where his uncle came to us at last Christmas and said, I can see now that this is what really needed to happen and this was what was best for him. Thank you for being part of our family. And that was amazing. It was an amazing gift. So it was a few months after we finalized with Matthew, we got a call about 2 other children that were in care, and we accepted. They were amazing, and they stayed with us for about 15 months before they returned. It was not hard for me to see them. I was sad for me because I loved them. But it was not hard for me to see them return, because every week that I went to a visit, I made it a point to talk with Mom, and I got to know Mom. And over that 15 months, I got to see changes in Mom. When the time came where they were going to be going back home, we were having visits in their family's home. And I got to meet their extended family. And I saw how much these kids were loved and how many resources were coming together to support this family. And I knew, even though it was hard for me, that they were going to be okay and that they were where they needed to be. And then our 2 children that are with us now came. They were with us 2.5 years. We went through many different phases. We thought they were going back, then they weren't going back. We had visits go down to bi-monthly. We had them go up to weekly. They had full-day visits, then they were pulled back again. Then they went home. They went home just before school started. They were there for 5 months. Just at the point where my husband and I said, okay, I think we're ready to do this again. We got a call that day about 2 children, and I said, let me think about it. While I was thinking about it, I got a call about my current kids, and they said, hey, would you take them back? If you can take them back, they're sitting here in Children's Youth's office. How quick can you get here? So I left work and I picked them up, and we finalized their adoption last October. We've also been able to keep in touch with their birth family, it's been good. It's still early days. It's been a year. So we definitely still have some kinks that we're working out with, just kind of understanding how each other communicates, understanding boundaries, things like that. But yeah, so that's my story, I guess our story in a nutshell, the quick condensed version.
I'm Eleanor. My husband Nick and I have been doing this. We're on our 13th year this year, with a really long break in the middle. We also did not go with Diakon right away. We went with another agency. So first round, our first placement was a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. They called us at 6 o'clock at night. They showed up at 6:15 with the 2 kids. We were 23 at the time. Welcome to parenthood. Here are 2 children. See you later. And then they left for the weekend. I was like, what the hell just happened to me? They actually went home 5 days later. First court hearing we went to, and the judge was like, why were they removed to begin with? Their father's right there. Lovely man, very capable. But his wife had gone to the hospital and reported that she'd shaken the child and had not told them where Dad was. So these kids that we were told, you'll have them at least 6 months guaranteed. 5 days later, we're handing them off. Dad was lovely, really glad to meet him though and have the opportunity to see these kids go where they needed to go. Our next placement was a 9-year-old boy. He was deaf, he had ODD, ADHD, and every other letter you can think of. He was with us for 3 weeks before he went back to his mum. We then took a 4-year-old boy. We were told that we were going to be on the fast track to adoption. Rights are already terminated. Absolutely nobody else interested. He's going to be yours. And 2 weeks later, a couple came forward and offered to adopt him and all 5 of his siblings all together. He left 2 days later. We then got 2 girls. They were 3 and 4. And their mom worked her butt off to get those kids home. Up until that point, we'd never really had the opportunity to work hard with birth families. We'd kind of met them once or twice, and that was it. But this mom we were involved with for 6 months, and we watched her go from a place where she was addicted to heroin and had all her children taken and placed in various homes. She completed a 30-day rehab. She got a job. She got a place to live. She bought beds for the kids, and she worked her butt off to get her girls home. And they went home right on the 6-month mark. And we were excited to see them go home. She had worked really hard, and this was like the goal of foster care. But we at this point had 6 kids come and go through our house, and we were ready to start our family and adopt. And we weren't able to keep supporting reunification and birth families and cheering them on because our loss issues were just piling up on us. So we took a break, and then we ended up adopting through Swan. And we said, only place with us kids that are ready for adoption. And our boys came home. We met our boys in May and brought them home in June. They were 13 and 14, and we finalized their adoption 7 months later. If you guys are in this with the goal of just straight up adopting, I really encourage everybody to look at the older kids. I know there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of, oh, but they'll never really see me as mom and dad and we won't really be a family. My children are very bonded and attached. My oldest son was my best friend in the world, and as far as he was concerned, we were his real family. Birth family was also his real family. He kept a really good relationship with his dad. My son passed away last year, and now that he is gone, I keep a relationship with his dad and his birth family, and I stay in touch with them. Our youngest son is 22. He graduates from college this year. He's a chemistry major and looking for jobs. He had a very tough teenage period. We did a lot of different residential placements and a lot of different group homes with him, but he has come out the other side and is incredibly successful, doing really well, comes home every weekend to visit us. Right after we adopted the boys, we found out we were pregnant. After many, many years of there's no way you can get pregnant, not going to happen, nope, tried every treatment under the sun, and then I went to the doctor saying I'm tired and I'm sick all the time and I don't know what's wrong with me. We were pregnant. She was born 3 days before the anniversary of their adoption, so we went from 0 to 3 in 12 months. And then we took a break because we were just done. We were living in like a 900 square foot farmhouse with 2 teenagers, my dad and a baby. So we took a break for like 6 years and then relicensed again with Diakon. So we are on our second placement with Diakon now. Our first little boy was with us from January to March. He was a medically complex child, Spanish speaking only. That was a new challenge for us to learn Spanish as fast as we could with him. He was 22 months old and we all learned some languages together. He went back to his mom and then we got our current placement. Our daughter was 4 days old when we got the referral in the NICU. They called me and they said, she's 3 days and 3 pounds, we think. She was both. She was 3 days and 3 pounds. She came home the day she hit 4 pounds when she was 10 days old. And her brother, who is 2 and he's 2.5 now, came home a couple of days before her. So right now we have an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old at home. Their goal is reunification. Some weeks I'm really, really hopeful and I think we're like in a great place and it's gonna happen and mom's doing what she needs to do and we're gonna go home, and then the next week I'm like, are you kidding me? And we just fall off the train again and I think, nope, not gonna happen, never gonna happen, I'm gonna end up adopting these kids. And then she climbs back on and starts working again. So we're lucky we have a great relationship with her. We have worked hard to have a good relationship with her. We see her twice a week at visits, and I think whatever happens with these kids, I think they're going to have all of us in their lives. Mom has said to us that, if and when she gets her kids home, she definitely wants us to stay involved and we'll get to keep seeing them. And if it doesn't work out, she's somebody we would keep in our lives as well. But my hope is that she's going to manage to pull this off. She's a lovely lady, and I really hope we're able to get these kids home for her. So, that's our story in a nutshell. We've had, everything from 4 days to 14 years old. We've done all kinds of special needs, including the ones we said we wouldn't do. We did do medically complex for a while and then quit doing that, and I think now we're just considered a straight up foster family. We're licensed for adoption. We would adopt again, but we've always believed it's really important that if we're going to do foster care, we have to support reunification first and only adopt when we become the last resort for the kids. So what questions do you guys have? Because we could talk about this all day. I have like a whole list of things, but I know every group I come to, there's different questions that people have about the foster care adoption process. Well, it depends what age you're looking at. So if you have a narrow range, you can keep some stuff in your house. So if you're one of those families that's like, we want a kid 2 and under, go buy a car seat and a crib. You're going to need it. That's just a guarantee. Just get the convertible car seat, you're good to go. If you're one of those crazy families that is like 0 to 18, bring me 1 kid, 5 kids, we're good to go, it's a little harder to be prepared. There are resources that can help you with that. There's several foster closets in the area. I think they're going to give you guys a list at some point if they haven't already. But in Lehigh Valley is the Kindness Project, and in Berks County there is Threads of Change. They keep stuff that is donated: cribs, beds, strollers, car seats, clothes, toys. And when you know you're getting a placement, you go there and they give you all the stuff you need and it's free. Otherwise, one person goes to Walmart and the other person stays at home. Whoever's the better shopper goes to Walmart, because if I send my husband, he's going to come home with just very, very random things. So he stays home with the kids and he feeds them chicken nuggets, and I go to Walmart and buy what we need. I haven't figured out a better system than that. It depends what they come with. You know, I've had kids come with like a suitcase and everything they need, and I've had children show up in underpants. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like a child in underpants and a blanket, and they hand them to you, and now you're going to buy everything. We do keep some stuff on hand. We always keep a spare bed and a crib. I always keep at least one convertible car seat, and I keep like one outfit in every size. So I'll hit yard sales and Goodwill, and I'll have just one outfit in every size that's fairly gender neutral. So I have clothes to put on the child, so when I go to Walmart, they're not naked. Because my husband does like to travel, and we normally get placements when he's traveling for work. So I need something to stick them in to get to Walmart.
Yeah, I would say for us generally, we have a lot of stuff. I do try and limit that somewhat. I think when the kids are a little bit older, one of the things I like to do is soon after they come, that we go out shopping together so that they can have things that are theirs in their space. Because a lot of times, you're right, they don't come with much. No. We've had very few kids that do come with a lot of stuff. So having stuff that is theirs. I know with my oldest son, Diakon gave us a great start. At that point, they had a huge toy closet. And we came here to meet him, and I just remember we played at this little table and played trains with him for a little bit. And when it was time to go, they let him walk into this toy closet, which had toys from floor to ceiling. And I mean, his eyes were huge. He did not know what to do with himself, but it was really fun. It did help him, you know, with that transition to be able to come home with us. Because that was, I mean, at that point, we were strangers. We were good intentioned strangers, but, you know, for him, he had left his birth family, he had left his birth parents, his birth grandparents, who was placed with after them. He went to a foster family that did not work out, and then he came to us. So he had a lot of changes, so he was a pretty frightened little kid too.
I think the other thing you can do is have some on-call people. You know, you need a village to be a foster parent. It is very, very important to have people around you who are going to help you and support you. And the first thing everyone is going to say to you is, you got a kid, what can I do? What you can do is you can go to Walmart and pick up the diapers for me, because I need to be home with the kid right now. So I have people that I will call and be like, I have a 4-day-old 3-pound girl coming. Can you go figure out what kind of diapers I need for that? Because that just sounds really tiny. And they'll go and buy them, and I'll give them the money back, and we're good. Facebook is your best friend, or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is that you use. Put a post out there, 8-year-old boy coming. You'll be amazed at the amount of stuff that arrives on your porch that day. Because people have extra stuff. So when I know a friend is getting a kid, I'll take over clothes or toys or whatever for that size. Get to know other foster families, especially those of us who've been doing it for a little while. We probably have something that'll work for a child of any age.
I'm just always very honest. I'm very honest, and I encourage my kids to be honest as well. About how they feel. I mean, it's kind of a joke in my house at this point, but they will say, you know, I can feel more than one way at once. It's like, yes, and that's acceptable. You're allowed to feel any way that you want to. You know, and I think that we just very much keep that openness. You know, and we try and be available and have, I mean, I guess for what we do is we try and have one-on-one time with all of the kids, so there is that space to talk about it, because, you know, there are a lot of feelings. You know, in our situation, we had our 2 youngest for 2.5 years. They suddenly went back home, and then 5 months later they were back. I got the call they were coming back when I was at work. I didn't have time to prep my son that, you know, these guys are coming back. So at that point, I'm calling daycare, and I'm saying, Doreen, can you please talk to my son and just let him know that the other 2 are coming back with me today. They are back in our care. By the way, do you have room for them in before and after care? Because we're going to need it. But if you could just prep him before I get there, so this is not a total shock. We have a wonderful relationship with her, and we're very much on the same page. So she goes to him and, pretty much says to him, they're coming back. Do you want some space to talk about this? Do you need some time? Do you have any questions? So she was able to kind of prep him before he came. But it was really interesting. When he came back, the first words out of his mouth to them were, I'm really happy to see you, but I'm kind of angry that you left in the first place. But I do think, kids are amazing. And I think if we give them the tools and we give them the space, they are amazingly able to process a lot of these changes, I think sometimes more than we are.
I think it's really important to talk to your kids about foster care.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kids that you adopted from the system, it's a little different. But if you have biological children, you're going to have to talk to them about this stuff. I told my daughter that, sometimes there's kids that can't stay with their mommy and daddy for right now because they need extra time to learn how to be better at being a mommy and daddy. And in the meantime, we're going to be their family, but they have another family too, and their family loves them very, very much, and we're going to take care of them till they can go home. And if they can't go home, they'll stay with us. So she knows that every child that comes into our home is foster for now, that they could stay, but that's not our primary goal. She doesn't know a whole lot about why they came into care. She pieces it together. She listens in when the social workers come over and stuff. She's pieced together a good part of the story at this point. But you have to have the conversation with your kids because they don't know what foster care is. A lot of kids get scared that they're going to go into foster care. Mm-hmm. If you don't explain it well, then kids get the idea that every child eventually moves. And we didn't realize this, but my daughter, when she was 4, we found her packing a bag one day. At this point, we weren't fostering, but she knew her older brothers had been adopted. And I said, why are you packing? And she said, well, I'm getting to the age I think I'll probably need a new mommy and daddy soon. Why do you need a new mommy and daddy? Well, I haven't been adopted yet. Okay, well, honey, that's not going to happen for you. You only get one mom and dad. But if you don't talk about it, kids will put it together. And she's like, okay, well, new mom and dad are coming, right? Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, I'm sad about it, but that's just what happens. No. You live here, honey, and you'll always live here. But it's important to say that you will always be here, but these kids may come and go. Yeah. And I always emphasize to her that they have another mom and dad they love too. And that's okay. It's okay to have at least people they love. She's met their birth parents. She comes along to visits when she's off school, so she understands what's going on.
I think, too, it's important also if you have other children that you have adopted, that you also allow them space to have feelings after visits or things like that, because, they're experiencing grief. Yeah. They're experiencing a loss. And there are different points in life where this is going to come up for them. It's not going to be done on adoption day. There are going to be other points that it is coming up. And I know that, as we're preparing to foster again, I sat down and I talked with the 2 youngest. And I said, do you remember when you went to visit, sometimes this was very hard for your brother. Sometimes he cried when you went to visits. Sometimes he had behavior afterwards. And I said, you might experience those things too. And it's okay that you have these feelings. It's going to be normal because you're going to remember when you were going on visits, and it may make you miss your birth family. And basically what we have is we have a family agreement that if we're going to do this, that everybody has to agree that when they are having those feelings, that they will talk about it.
I encourage a lot of honesty in my kids as well. My 22-year-old struggles with the goal of reunification for the younger ones. He spent 4 years in foster care. This was back when they would spend years and years trying to reunify, and so he went through 4 years of attempted reunifications. So he gets angry about it. He says to me, this is ridiculous. If they couldn't take care of them right away, they should be done. They should just be out of the picture. You should adopt them, move on, done. And I don't correct him. I say to him, that's okay to have that thought. That's okay to have that feeling. That is not the way it works. I don't agree with you, but it's okay. With my 8-year-old, I also tell her it's okay to feel however you feel about the kids, because we bring these kids in and we expect them to be like this instant family. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're really hard to like. it's really hard for us to like them. And it's not okay to say that in like any circle ever, because kids are like likable and lovable, right? And this is like your son and daughter, and they like walk in the door and you're a mummy now, and they're really hard to like. Sometimes they're actually hard to love for a while as well. And just because they walked in your door, you don't feel that instant, oh, you're my child. You take care of them, you protect them, you enjoy them. I didn't necessarily feel that way about the daughter I gave birth to right away either. I was like, it took me a couple of days. I'm like, you're cute, but I don't know. And I tell her that. It's okay to not like your brother and sister sometimes. It's okay to be mad that they took all the time and all the attention. They take your food off your plate and they break your toys. And, you know, so we encourage her to politely express not so positive feelings. She currently calls the 2-year-old a marshmallow. He cries at the drop of a hat. I mean, if you look at him sideways, he just lays down on the floor and starts wailing. And that's just like his default on everything in life. So she calls him her little marshmallow because he melts easily. We encourage her to just say that, not to him, but to us, and to try and find the positives with him and find pleasant things she can do with him. But we also don't force her to immediately have a relationship with him. We let her do it at her own pace. Mm-hmm. The 22-year-old, it's been slower for him to form a relationship, I think, because he gets nervous about forming bonds with these kids and then them leaving. So he's had a lot of severed connections in his life. So Diakon is really good with that, by the way. They do, like, their sibling prep class is fantastic. So the surprise welcome things, I was super surprised by how well my 14-year-old bonded with us. You know, everything I'd read about adopting kids of that age, I was expecting like an uphill battle to bond. And his file had all this stuff listed in it. He had all these attachment problems with women, didn't like mom figures. He bonded really, really fast. To the point it scared me because I'd read enough about adoption issues that I was like, oh God, here we go. Never had a problem. He just walked in the door and was like, I want to be adopted. I want a mom and dad. I want them forever. This is what I want. This is my new life now. And was very open about his relationship with his previous foster families, his birth families, but also really bonded with us. And I didn't see that coming. I thought it was going to be harder. I think the challenge is, you know, the kids that show up with, you know, you get a call for one thing and then the age is a little off or the diagnosis is much off. You know, CYS doesn't always have all the information and Diakon tells you what they can. But sometimes you bring a kid home and you just keep uncovering information. So the little boy we took who was medically fragile, we were given one diagnosis and one specialist when we picked him up. 2 weeks later, I had 9 specialists in my phone and appointments from like Philadelphia to Hershey to Lehigh, and it was not what we thought we were taking on. I think also just some of the issues that annoy me that I didn't expect to. You know, like I expected to have a hard time with some of the behaviors, but some of the stuff that just drives me up the wall, like my 2-year-old had major food issues when he came home. And so for the first 2 months, he said the word eat every day, like 200 times an hour. I counted. He would just get up in the morning and just go, eat, 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 eat. And I didn't think that was going to make me as crazy as it did. But it like just had me like ready to jump out the window. I was like, God, I just fed you. I'm going to feed you again. Please stop. And it just made me crazy. So I think that surprised me just how much these things can just get under my skin and just make you feel like you're just, I think I realized early on, I realized with him, you have to find ways to take a break. I put him in preschool 3 mornings a week so I could stop hearing eat every day. So I had 3 mornings where nobody said eat to me for 4 hours. And it made a huge difference. Like, I like him so much more, and he has stopped now. You know, he is now feeling secure in his food, and we fed him every hour on the hour for many months until he feels secure. And I forgot how crazy it made me until we took him trick-or-treating. It was a bad idea. We should not have done that. It triggered those food issues all over. Eat, 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 eat. All of Halloween Day. Eat, 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 eat. Oh, my God. We're back down again. We stopped again. But yeah, those things that you don't see coming that you're like, whoo, that one's just going to drive me off the edge.
I guess I would say, you know, kind of the challenges and joys have been intertwined. I would say one of my biggest challenge has been navigating the special education system. My oldest came where he really had maybe 3 or 4 words at age 4, and they said that he had very significant delays. So special education was part of our life from day one. Navigating the kind of the preschool system and then the school system, and fighting for what I knew that he needed. And but I would say that's also been my greatest wonderful surprise, because at this point he is mostly in regular education, and we just learned this year that the only help that he needs is with problem solving and math. That's the only thing that he qualifies for special education in. So that was a really awesome surprise. Like I was definitely going to fight for him for whatever he needed, but I just had no idea how far he was going to go. And it just gives me such joy at this point, because I think if he has come this far and he's 12, oh my gosh, this is going to be an exciting ride to see where he's going to go in life. So.
Yeah. It's amazing how much progress they can make just being in like a good environment where they're getting like food and they have secure housing and they're getting the right attention and love, and just the progress is just incredible. I mean, you just see these children transform. I mean, when I got my 14-year-old, he was listed as learning disabled, special ed, learning support, unable to read, needed speech therapy. He got halfway through college before his illness made him drop out. He was in regular ed within a year. He just needed somebody to give a damn and to hold him responsible and to say, no, you're going to do your homework because I want what's best for you, and to show up and fight for him. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how hard I was going to have to fight. Right. Like, get your fighting pants on, because wow. I mean, you will fight hospitals and insurance companies and the foster care system itself sometimes, and special ed and everything else.
Yeah, I would say even with the schools. Like, I know this past year we had an issue with my youngest in school, and he just was not doing well. The teacher said he won't work unless I'm standing next to him. And this is my superstar at home. This is my child who puts himself to bed at night doing math. He's in 2nd grade and he's learning multiplication independently. He really is a very, very bright kid, but they're telling me he's having all of these struggles in school. We convene teams and have people go in, and finally what I come to understand is it's not my son. It's the teacher. She's got this script in her head of, this is a child who's come through the foster care system, and I have to have special expectations for him that are lower than my other students. So she's not telling him things like, you need to do this work independently. When he is struggling, she goes over to him, and she was creating this monster that wasn't really happening any other place in his life. So I guess I would say that was a battle I did not expect to fight, but I needed to. And it was good. It took a few people. You're talking about a village. We had to create a village, and we had to help that teacher kind of change her understanding of, kind of what it meant to be a foster child.
People have weird ideas about what it means. Like, you will do a lot of re-educating. It shocks me. I mean, people meet my current kids, and I mean, my baby's 7 months old. She's like the happiest baby on the planet. You look at her and she just falls about giggling and smiling at you. And people will meet her and they're like, who's this? And I say, well, this is, and I give them her name. Oh, I thought you were fostering. We are. She's a foster child? I wouldn't expect her to look like that. Because she's happy? I'm not sure what you're expecting, but most of them you can't actually tell. They don't have a big F on their head. They just kind of look like regular kids. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But people just have some really crazy ideas about what foster children should look like. Yeah. I think that was my other biggest shock, the things that come out of people's mouth. And I'm like, you want to put that back in there yet?
Well, and I would say, too, the questions that they feel that they're entitled to ask.
Questions!
Boundaries have been a big thing. Like my younger children are Puerto Rican, so they do not look like me. people felt when they were younger they could walk up to me in the grocery store and say, "Where did you get your children from?"
How much were they? Did you get a discount because you got two at once? My son said, yes, we would buy one, get one free. Are they all yours? Yep, all of them.
So I think that has been something that is challenging, is setting boundaries with people and helping them understand that just because my children don't look like me, they're not necessarily entitled to learn their histories. My children's stories are their stories. Yeah.
Which, if you have other kids, by the way, work with your kids on how they're going to answer those questions too. My daughter gets grilled by other children and by teachers who would like to know, well, why were your brother and sister placed in foster care? Well, they're going to adopt them. Well, how much is it to adopt them? Well, did your brothers get adopted? Were they cheaper? I mean, people will just ask her, and she's like, teacher at school this week was asking her these questions, and my daughter looks at her and goes, you seem to have very loose boundaries. I'm like, it's appropriate, don't say that to a teacher. Yes, she does, sweetheart. We need to rephrase that, though. You are right, she does seem to have very loose boundaries. So you need to prep your kids with answers, and if you have children who are old enough to be in school and are in foster care, you also need to prep them with answers, because they'll get asked, is that your mum? And they might want to answer, and they might not want to answer, and sometimes they want to blend. My middle son, oldest son, middle-ish son, never wanted anyone to know he was adopted. He's still, yep, that's my mum and dad. Nope, they just look young. Yep, absolutely, they're my mum and dad. He will not admit to anybody he's adopted. Where my oldest son would be like the second thing he told you. He'd be like, I'm Richie, I was adopted. Just before you ask, yes, she's really my mum. I know, she looks young. Thank you very much.
I mean, I guess I feel that it just gives, I guess my reason for really making sure that we have that relationship is because of my children. I feel that the birth family is part of who they are. And in order for them really to be whole and complete people, they need to have that, and they need to have access to that. I guess I've always kind of felt that I'm kind of the guardian of that relationship until they get to be an age that they can make the decision for themselves what they want to do with that relationship. But I guess I would say that I feel that my kids are more confident. I feel like because we still have a relationship with their birth family, I feel like they have more control over their story.
I think it's really easy to demonize people, and I think if you can try and find the humanity in people, they're people who made a mistake, they screwed up, they did, they know it. I think for my older children, they never felt like they had to choose. They always said that they were comfortable with having two sets of parents, and there were no loyalty issues for them. They felt very comfortable in loving all of us and being loved by all of us. And I think for our family, it has brought a lot of healing. When my son got sick last year, I called his birth father to let him know. My son had cystic fibrosis, and we knew that he was getting to the point where he only had a couple of days left. And his birth father came to the hospital, and we were able to sit at his bedside together, holding hands, and we said goodbye to him together. And for my son, he didn't have to choose between the people he was going to have in those kind of important moments in his life. And I wish it had been a different moment. I wish it had been his wedding that we all were there for. But whatever these milestones in your child's life are, they shouldn't have to make the decision on, am I going to have that set of parents or this set of parents there? No one should have to choose that. It's like when your parents are divorced and they hate each other so much, you can't have them both at Christmas. I don't want my kids to have to choose. For my little ones, I think it's super powerful for them to see that we're okay with each other. My 2-year-old is very comfortable going back and forth. When I go to visits, he says, hi, Mama. And she says, hi, buddy. Hi, Mommy. And we chat about what the kids are doing. And he goes back and forth between us, literally just climbing back and forth between our arms. And he doesn't feel conflicted about coming to me and hugging me and kissing her. So I think for him, the comfort level is much easier. I think for my baby, it's a whole lot easier as well. She's getting to the age where she has a lot of separation anxiety. And so she's looking at me and she's looking at my reaction when I hand her off for a visit. And if I was conflicted about it, if I was standing there thinking, oh, I don't want to give it to you and I really don't like you and you're a terrible person, she would know that. She'd be very upset. And she's going to 2 2-hour visits a week. So that's a lot of time for her to feel scared and distressed. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't. She doesn't get scared to go to her mom because I smile and tell her how nice it is to see her and hand the baby to her, and then she comes right back to me. So,
but I guess I would say that, the relationship isn't always easy.
Oh, no.
I know that for us, with my oldest, he decided, just before the termination of his parents' rights, he decided he didn't want to go to visits anymore. And I explained to him, it's not really your choice. This is what the judge requires, that we go to these visits. And basically, when I started talking about being the guardian of that relationship, that was something that I had to do at that time, because at that time, he did not want his birth family. So what we agreed to was that I knew that they had a big family celebration every Christmas Eve. And we invited ourselves. And, they were open to it. They were kind of like, great, we get them for Christmas. It's like, yes, we are going to come to your Christmas. And then when we would get together for visits at other times, we'd always make sure that we were doing something really, really fun. And that it was always a fun visit. Something that we knew would appeal to him. We would do things like, for Christmas, I would always make sure that I would get in touch with them ahead of time and let them know what that thing was that he wanted that year. What was the big gift? Because, my reality is, yes, I wanted to see that wow moment for him, but I have him 365 days a year. I could give them the wow moment, and I'm really glad that I was able to do those things for him, because now he really has come to peace, kind of with having two families, and it doesn't really even feel like that. We go and hang out at their house, and it's easy. With my other kids, it was challenging because their birth mother really, really resented me, especially, because they called me mom. My rule in my house is I don't really care what you call me. As long as it's respectful, I will answer to it. I feel that the kids coming into my house, they did not choose this situation. So any choice I can give them, I will give them. But they chose to call me mom. When they went to visits and they would talk about mom or the other mom, their birth mom would get upset. When they went home for the 5 months, my youngest had a really hard time transitioning back to that home. And he would talk about me a lot, and she would punish him if he would call me mom. And then she basically said that he was not allowed to talk about me at all. So when we did have the termination and when they were adopted, I've really had to work hard on that, because I'll be honest, I'm really angry that she did that to him. There are times, even now, when I think about it, I'm like, how could she do that? But then I take a step back from myself and I think, you know what? She's human, and it has to be a hard thing when you see this child that you love only for a couple of hours a week or a couple of hours here and there, and there is this other person that you see is taking your role. So, I gave her that space to be angry with me, and we've worked very hard. Most of our contact at this point, we do visits. A lot of our contact is me emailing her. I'll do things like when the kids had their physicals, I'll just email her and say, hey, we had our physicals, it's great, this is how tall they are, this is how much they weigh. I will send her pictures from soccer just so that she does feel that she's part of their life and she doesn't feel threatened by me. But it is work, and it really does, it's work for me because I have to also keep my emotions in check, because there are times that she'll do things that, show that she doesn't like me very much. I'm fortunate that I have the experience with my son's oldest family that I can see that probably over time that will change. And down the road, I hope that we will all be very good friends. And you know, I just maintain that hope.
So our kids were old enough that they had a choice in whether they were being placed with us and whether they were being adopted. So they were in a foster home that had planned to adopt them and then change their minds. So they knew that they were meeting prospective adoptive parents. So we met them at Dairy Queen for like an hour, and my son showed up with a list of questions for us. The first question was, do I get a cell phone? I said, when you turn 13. It's going to be super monitored and very limited. And they were like, huh, that sounds like a good parent decision there. Okay, all right. And then we started doing visits. So I think the first one was like 2 hours, and then it was like half a day, and then it was a full day, and then it was a weekend. And then their foster home gave notice and said they had to be out immediately. So then they moved in. So we were meant to have like 3 months of this work towards moving in, and then all of a sudden they were like, done, get them out. And a week later they were on our door. So, you know, I think however old your child is when you come home, take several years off and assume you're bonding at that age. So my kids were 12 and 14 when they came home, 13 and 14 at adoption. We read bedtime stories every night for 6 months. They were clearly old enough to read to themselves. And we didn't read like bedtime stories like Harry Potter. My son wanted to be read Goodnight Moon every night because when he was little, his mom used to read it to him before she left. And so sometimes you have to do stuff that feels like a little uncomfortable, a little like, this is kind of weird, and we're just gonna run with this. A lot of one-on-one time, a lot of figuring out what they were interested in, which means you might have to do stuff that you're not interested in. I hate fishing. I can't sit still for very long, you know, like in a chair for an hour here. I'm clearly having a hard time with keeping this chair in one place. So to sit and fish, it sounds like a nightmare to me. You have to get up early, it's cold, there's fish, they're slimy, they wiggle. My son loved fishing though, so we would go fishing. And he taught me how to fish, and he loved teaching me how to fish. I've never caught anything ever. I'm a terrible fisherman. He used to laugh about how he wouldn't catch anything when I was there because I'd be wiggling the whole time and moving the rod around. But I think for him, being able to do something he was interested in with me, he really appreciated that experience. And it went both ways. I started showing him stuff I liked. He picked up photography. We did that together. We did fishing together. We played about 9 million board games. We did a lot of reading. And a lot of it's just time, just showing up. And for a kid that has been in the system for any period of time, you're going to have to show up a lot and be super, super consistent before they're going to trust you. Because they have had just every adult in their world break their trust. So that means you show up at every soccer game, whether it's cold or wet or raining, and whether you're sick or not, you just keep showing up. And when you show up enough times for enough years, I think eventually you start to gain that trust. It's hard, and I think it's different with every child. And with my youngest son, we're probably still working on it. We've had him a decade. He's 22. We're still working on bonding and cementing our relationship and him feeling secure, and we will not walk away from him. We're in a better place this year than I think we've ever been, but it is, I think, for him, going to be a lifelong issue. But I mean, it depends on the age of your kid and how many you get at once. Mm-hmm. One at a time is easier to bond with. When you bring a whole bunch home at once, try to make sure you have one-on-one time with both parents and each child, which means you like get a calendar and like 12 highlighters and you start color coding your days, because once you're outnumbered, it's tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, that transition from like 2 to 3 or 4 or 5, then you're trying to find one-on-one time for everybody. Yeah. I think SWAN's a great program to look at, though. I really like, if you are in this and all you want to do is adopt, look at SWAN. There are some really awesome kids on there. Not if you're looking for a baby, not if you're looking for a toddler. That's not your place to go. But if you know that you're okay with an older child and your heart is absolutely set on you want to adopt and you can't handle a reunification, look at SWAN. There's a lot of really awesome kids looking for homes, and the teenagers, I think, are often grateful for the chance to have a home. Not that we should expect our children to be grateful, but I think they want someone to go home to. They want someone to show up to college graduation. You know, I can't imagine aging out and being on my own at 18 or 21. No. I mean, we're not there right now. Right now, we're looking for younger than my daughter. My hope is eventually we'll be able to come back, though, when all these kids are older and adopt again, and we're looking for like 16, 17 at that point, but not while we have a little one at home. So we'll see how many we have between now and then. My husband swears we're done at 5, but he swore we were done at 3 as well, so I feel like they just up it a little bit at a time.
My husband's rule is even numbers.
Even numbers?
Even numbers, that's his rule, yeah.
I should try that. That would get me one more.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. I want to try the even number roll. He won't let me change my car. I drive an SUV and I want to trade it in for a minivan. He refuses to let me because he's convinced I'm going to fill it. So, I mean, in his defense, I took these 2 current kids while he was at the bank. So he went to the bank. He didn't answer his phone. I was like, well, I guess I'm making that decision. And he came home and I was knocking the second crib together. He was like, you want to tell me something? Yeah, I do actually. You didn't answer your phone. Could you put that one together? Because help, they're both coming. So 6, I should try that.
Yeah.
Okay, even numbers, got it.
Yeah.